Welcome everyone. Today we have our 302 episode, and this is one of the very important episode because we will discuss on biodiversity and ecosystem. We have our expert panelist, Madam Beth Love. She has a lot of knowledge on biodiversity, and this is very important for solving these climate change issues. Beside that, we have our friends, very energetic friends, Mr. Aaron and Mr. James Eid, who always support World Talent Economy Forum initiative. So I want to start with Madam Beth Lab. How do you want to analyze this biodiversity and ecosystem, how it works, how it will be helpful? Even I know that Malaysia has very good natural environment and other things. But my understanding that because we are moving with smart city and many projects, we are cutting different natural elements, and now we are developing smart city. What's your views? How we can solve this problem? How we can make a green city?
Well, I'll have to admit that I haven't studied up on Malaysia and how you can make a green city, but I tend to think more globally in terms of what's happening, because we are just one globe, and we do have an incredible crisis in the area of biodiversity. We have over let me look at my notes. 1 million species are threatened right now worldwide, and we're losing species at tens or hundreds of times what's called the background rate, which is the loss of species over millions of years. So right now we're losing many more species than we ever have over the course of human history, except in other mass extinctions, such as the sixth mass extinction that we're experiencing right now, and is caused by human activity. And I would say even behind that, what is caused by is human consciousness, because it's caused by this perception that we are separate from the natural world, and that the natural world is here for us to use as resources. The natural world and the living beings with whom we share the planet, they're here for our use, for our pleasure, for our exploitation. And what's the truth, I believe, is that the natural world is our relations. We're all interconnected in one web of life, and we are dependent on this earth, and we are dependent on its natural systems functioning properly. And that is not the consciousness with which we have lived for many thousands of years. And I must say, my organization, Eat for the Earth, is working for change in one area. And in the area of biodiversity, it's really important that we're working on dietary change, because the single human activity that is most responsible for species loss is eating animals, their parts and their secretions. And it doesn't matter whether we're growing them with animal agriculture, which in my country, in the United States, 99% of the animals raised for food are being raised in these factory farms. And around the world, it's harder to get statistics, but it's somewhere between 90 and 95% are being raised in these factory farms. And those environments are destroying biodiversity, destroying species, decreasing biomass. But it also is happening because of bushmeat, because of the wet markets. It's also happening because of human encroachment on the natural world, and again through animal agriculture and through sourcing animals for food by predator eradication, and through deforestation, which is a huge loss of biodiversity and biomass. And most of the forests are being cut or burned or raised with these giant machines in order to make space to grow cattle or to grow soybeans for pigs. And there's so many other ways that this activity of sourcing animal products for food is causing this huge sixth mass extinction. And I'll just add further here, and then I'll close for now, that the good news is that we can shift our diets. Like, we can shift our human diets. And I'm not just talking on an individual level, but that countries and public health departments and policymakers and thought leaders around the world can start leading this revolution to plant-centric diets that are exclusively whole plant foods or based primarily in plants. And we can not only reverse the biomass and biodiversity loss and restore the ecosystem to some kind of balance, but this can also help with the climate crisis and with ocean dead zones and so many other environmental crises. And so I'm happy and grateful to be here today. Thank you again, as always, for inviting me, Sharif.
Thank you, Madam Betla. Mr. Aaron, how do you want to analyze this biodiversity and ecosystem, which is really important for us?
Well, first off, I'd like to start by saying that you'll feel a lot better too if you eat a largely plant-based diet. I do personally. It's a lot more nutrient dense. It's just all around a lot better for you and a lot more natural. You'll feel 10 times better. Now on this subject, I would like to stress that we like to think of Earth as being inhabited by separate organisms, but the reality of the matter is more true to Earth being one massive superorganism. All life on Earth is very deeply interconnected via pheromonal exchanges, microbial exchanges, electrochemical exchanges. And in fact, mycelial colonies that link entire forests and chunks of forests together undergo the exact same electrochemical exchanges that occur within your brain. There are some very interesting studies being done now on slime molds currently that without a brain show the ability to learn information, to nourish different parts of itself, to move nutrients around. And then you begin to realize that life was really built around supporting itself. You know, plants and animals co-evolve together to feed and to support each other. You know, and we sort of broke this natural cycle with the agricultural revolution, you know, circa 10,000 years ago. And in doing so, this was sort of the Pandora's box that led forward to most of the horrors and things that we as a species face today, least of which not being climate change and the eradication of biodiversity. So learning where we went wrong with the factory-style agricultural methods, you know, where we broke our truce with nature, because if a tree is dying in a forest, all of the forest comes together to help support that tree. What have we done so far out of whack with this incredible system that we have managed to corrupt it to this point? And what can we possibly begin to do to change it? Well, again, it starts with what Reverend Beth Love had said about changing your diet, changing your ethical views on how you view other beings, other life forms on this planet. And try to have a plant-based diet and try to focus around, you know, home-based agriculture, even grow your own fruits and veggies. It's more economical. There's no loss. But I'm monologuing, so I'll go ahead and turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Mr. Jamsid, how do you want to analyze these biodiversity points, especially
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you for inviting me again. I really appreciate it. I'm learning stuff already, as I always do on your shows. And I want to emphasize the word that I first heard Reverend Beth say, extinction. We are talking about mass extinction. Now, there have been mass extinctions in the past, but you know, they're so long ago, we've forgotten what it was like. But things that were common in those days are gone. And things that we take for granted today might be gone. And when I'm talking about gone, I'm talking about like our grandchildren's gone. And so these types of things, the pace of change, people are not comfortable with change, and the pace of change has accelerated beyond our wildest imaginations. Normally, through most of our history, a grandparent's experience was much like the grandchild's experience. That is no longer the case. The pace of change is not growing slowly. The pace of change is accelerating. So that, and because we're not comfortable with change, we're not taking the actions we needed to take. And I mean the actions we needed to take yesterday. But you can't go back and live in the past. So all we can do is focus on what can we do today. And we can start, as my fellow panelists were saying, you can start with yourself first. This is changing your diet. Absolutely, this is possible. And if you say, oh no, I can't go vegan, and so I'm just going to continue on. Well, then you're just another brick in the wall that's keeping us apart. Why not take the bizarro Catholic approach that I take? It's like, eat meat on Fridays. It used to be forbidden. We couldn't eat meat on Fridays. Well, now that's the only day we can eat it. Just change your perspective. Change your focus just a little bit. Start with yourself. And the sphere of influence of those around you, you can start to change them. And then your community changes. And then where does it end? You can keep changing. And change is not the enemy. We have to change because we are on the precipice of devastating consequences, environmental collapse. And we think about COVID as the pandemic. Well, we're poisoning the planet. And maybe it's the autoimmune response of the planet that is unleashing itself against us, which the planet might perceive as the true virus, the true pandemic, because we're killing it. Stop poisoning the planet. That's a start. Start with yourself, work on your community, and let it go from there. But these things can't be put off until tomorrow. We should have started yesterday, but we can't change the past. Start today. Change your behavior today. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, thank you, madam. I have specific questions. Like, we are discussing on many species disappearing right now. So why are so many species disappearing, and what is a biodiversity hotspot? How we can grow, or how we can protect this?
Yes, why are many species disappearing? So again, it's like we're talking about is human consciousness. People are always, throughout time, we've been looking for how are humans unique, right? Like for a while, people thought it was because of our opposable thumbs, but some other animals also have opposable thumbs, or because of our tool making, but some animals make tools, or because of our intelligence, but crows are super intelligent, dolphins are super intelligent. What's different about humans is we are the first and probably the only species that has ever destroyed the nest entirely, that has ever taken us this close to the brink of extinction. It is our human consciousness, and it is driven by the wrong motive. And I've been reading this amazing book called Donut Economics by Kate Raworth, and everybody should read it. She's talking about how this whole idea of economics and how we've structured economics has driven us to this situation where not only do we have most of the people of the world living with much less than a very tiny percent of the world, and way too many people living without what they need, people living without water, without homes, without electricity, without sanitation. And then we have a few people who are living far beyond their means. But we also have transgressed the natural boundaries of the world in so many areas. Out of the 9 planetary boundaries, the boundaries within we must stay in order to avert complete chaos, we have already left the safe zone on 5 of those. And on 4 of those, the primary driver is animal agriculture and the way we source animal foods for our diets. And so, biodiversity loss, species loss is caused by the way humans behave based on this idea that all of us are talking about, that we are separate from nature, not intertwined with it, not integrated with it, and that nature is ours to use for our pleasure, to exploit, to make money for this tiny percentage of humanity. And so in this book, Donut Economics, it's really quite a beautiful book. She talks about turning economics on its head, and instead of chasing after GDP, gross domestic product, that we look for that safe and just zone that allows all humans to thrive within an earth that is sustainable. So it's a very, very exciting book, and I highly recommend it. So specifically, again, the reason species are declining is because the natural world has been thrown out of order by human activity, and we are changing the primary change that we're causing, that I'm so concerned about. And then James referenced by saying that that we need to start now, right? We can't wait. We need to start now. We may have only 6 or 7 years left to do something about the climate crisis, or lose our opportunity to take effective action. And so, taking this this climate crisis and raising the temperature and raising the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, we are just causing this chaos. And it's so many species are being lost. So many species. 1 million species are threatened right now.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Yes. Unmute, please.
That which is sustainable is inherently economical. I think that we have taken the wrong view of economics. As far as what I've just experienced here locally in my region in Texas, we've been a hot spot for strange weather lately. We had a big freeze at the start of this year, and we have had relatively mild temperatures and high amounts of rain. And this has led to a complete shift in biodiversity just in my region alone. You're already starting to see an end to all the low-laying brush and all the thorn-bearing plants and all that. It's starting to be taken over by this lush green. Now, you know, for a lot of reasons, this may sound like a good thing, but again, that's not the way things have been here for thousands of years, and there's likely to be a lot of negative ramifications of this. Even though it looks much prettier, you know, that's not what the life here has adapted to. And that's what you see pushing a lot of organisms out of their niche all over the world right now. And if they can't find anywhere to run to that suits them, they're faced with the painful decision to adapt or to die off. And unfortunately, the change is occurring much faster than they can adapt. So the option that this leaves is, you know, to die off. And that's why we see this mass extinction event occurring. And we're really accelerating it. It's been going on since the end of the last ice age. And we have put a critical tip to this curve that if we don't take action against, it's going to completely destroy our idea of life as we know it. We could be facing a world that's completely hostile, foreign, and alien within 10 years. A world that's either completely desertified or a complete marshy swamp or heavy combinations of both in regions that used to be the opposite. So as far as what's pushing organisms out of their environment, that's a large part of it, as well as deforestation and removal of their habitats. You know, our cities are being, and our farmlands are being built into rainforests, and not in the way that ancient civilizations were, not in a cohabitative sort of manner here. We have no interest in permaculture. We have no interest in implementing these ideas into most of our cities around the world. And I'm very inspired to see these being implemented in your country, Sharif.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Jamsit.
Yes, I think that, you know, focusing on the economics is a critical part of this puzzle as well, because, you know, I'm going to be called a Marxist, but I'm not. I'm just saying that unregulated free market capitalism contains the seeds of its own destruction. And we see that because monopolies inevitably followed and it stifled competition. So we needed regulations. So we used to pour our waste matter into our rivers. And so one day the rivers caught fire. Now water boils, it doesn't burn. So what was burning was the stuff we were dumping in our rivers. And we woke up and we passed some regulations. And now people they pay the cost if they want to try to poison our rivers and the flora and fauna that lives downstream. So the cost becomes prohibitive. That's the economic incentive to stop it. Just stop poisoning our planet. Now, what are we going to do? Wait around until the oceans start to burn? Or are we going to take action before that happens? We already have islands of plastic out there. Now, when are we going to wake up and make a difference? Start doing the right things. Now, also the economic systems, you know, the pace of change there is accelerating as well. You know, it used to be that companies would plan for the future and help their communities. And now our emphasis is on the quarterly report so that we can post good numbers for the stockholders so our stock will go up. And so all of our thinking is short term. One of the things, which just teaches you many lessons, but one of the things it teaches you is to postpone immediate gratification, to plan for what you want to achieve. And if you try to satisfy your immediate gratification, you will inevitably end up losing. But what are we doing now? We're tearing down rainforests to build places we can raise cattle and then harvest the beef. And then, you know, all of these things are self-destructive in the long run. But in the short run, they provide jobs, they provide food. And so that's our short-term thinking. We need to postpone our immediate gratification and think about the long-term consequences. The moves that we're making today are self-destructive in the long run. And so we have to start thinking a little bit ahead, a little bit towards the future, and instead about our immediate needs. And, you know, we do not want to be succumbed to greed, because the haves become face to face with the have-nots, and then the haves become very, very few, and the have-nots become very, very many. There will be conflict, inevitably. This is not something that we can, and it's so sadly obvious and predictable that this is what we're setting ourselves up for: conflict, destroying the planet. All of these things can be seen. Now, what is the solution? The solution is to start to think ahead and to cooperate. One country can't do it alone. America first is America alone. So just think about this in terms of cooperation. We're all in this together. Let's start acting like we are. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you. Ma'am, is there any alternative to protecting this biodiversity ecosystems, and what the scientific approach we can follow right now? Can you unmute, please?
So you're asking if there's an alternative to
Yes. Like,
annihilation of all the species?
Yes.
Absolutely. We need to start centering our priorities around something different. We need to look at true human values, and we need to start living in alignment with those values. And we need to call on our elected officials, our policymakers, to also align with human values. Most people, if given a choice, would not destroy our home, for their pleasure. Most people would not hurt other living beings for their pleasure. Most people would not live totally destructive lives, these consumeristic lives that we've been encouraged to live. We've been encouraged to buy, because there's this false idea that we're going to buy our way out of trouble, and it doesn't work. So we've been encouraged to collude with these huge corporations and to be enablers of their bad behavior and of government's bad behavior. And it's not working. So the alternative is to reorient around these human values of compassion and stewardship. If you look, I'm a reverend. If you look at most religious traditions, you're going to see that we were told that we were here to be stewards of the earth, not exploiters of the earth, stewards of the earth. And that's our true human nature. We want to take care of what's valuable. This earth is valuable. Every living being on this planet is worth something. And we need to reorient around those values and refuse to collude with this idea that the bottom line is the most holy thing that there is.
Thank you. Mr. Jamsid.
Thank you, Sharif. Yes, there is an alternative, and that is to incent proper behavior and disincent improper behavior. And this is a policy level type of decision. And it can't just be done by one country. It has to be done by the world. The governments of the world must unite and do this so that there are disincentives, economic disincentives, to engage in things that damage the planet. There are economic incentives to engage in things that help to restore the planet, to replant trees, to rebuild forests, to rebuild rainforests in particular, because these are some of the resources that the planet uses to keep itself healthy. So focus on what's good for the planet and incent people to give their technology, their resources to providing those technologies that will help the planet stay healthy, and disincent those to create technologies and other products that harm the environment. Make them pay a cost, whether it's tax, whether it's a penalty. I don't care what the disincentive is, what form it takes. Just everyone agree on what it is, and then universally throughout the planet impose those disincentives on the people that are destructive, and reward the people, the companies, make them profitable if they are helping the planet. So this is not rocket science. This is fairly easy, but what we have run into is the inability of people to cooperate with one another. When you take a small village, people learn to cooperate. When you think about this planet, I can't think, maybe I can picture Malaysia in my head, but can I really identify with Malaysians? And what about people in Scandinavian countries? And it's harder to picture us all in this together. But the fact of the matter is we are. So it's difficult to imagine us one planet, one globe, one people. It's harder because, I can't open my front door and see my neighbor. I can't open my door and see Canada. I can't open my door and see Mexico. So it's harder for me to think of them as my neighbors, but they are. So we have to change ourselves, the way we view the world. It's not us against them. It's us. Period. Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
Well, on an individual level, if all a company cares about is its bottom line, then hit them where it hurts. Don't support them. Don't buy from them. Research the products you're buying. Research, the companies supplying them. And if these companies don't care about anything but money and anything but themselves, don't give them your money. They're not creating anything of value. They don't deserve your money. And I personally am an entrepreneur, and I would urge you, don't give them any of your business. Especially companies that, partake in deforestation practices, unsustainability practices. You don't want to give them any of your money. Also, just to kind of touch on something that James said earlier, I think a lot of the reason why people avoid a plant-based diet is because they think it's very difficult to get all of your nutrition and all of your proper proteins in. Well, guys, just to give you all a little bit of information here, there are just two simple things that you can add to your diet that will ensure that you're nutritionally complete. That is spirulina and chlorella. I highly urge you to research them. They're very simple to cultivate at home, and they have a yield that doubles on a daily basis. So every day you take half, you come back, and it's back again. So it's very easy to cultivate. It's very sustainable nutrition. And it is the way to get complete proteins and complete nutrition while on a vegan or vegetarian diet. So if the last excuse you're clinging to is that, it's hard to get a complete protein or complete nutrition on a plant-based diet, it's not hard. You just haven't done the research. Well, I've done it for you. Here's the information. I urge you to take it and run with it. And that's just kind of my end of that little spiel there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, ma'am. One thing, like as World Talent Economy Forums, also we believe in climate change. Also, we are focusing on to solve different social and economical problem. So for this biodiversity, how can we help to promote this biodiversity? Even we are working with governments, university, as well as corporations, how we can create more awareness, how we can develop a sustainable ecosystem for that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm super excited to talk about that, but first I need to respond to something James said and something Aaron said. So first of all, one of the problems with this idea of incentivizing and disincentivizing is we need to look at the fact that in some ways, many governments, such as in the United States and around the world, have disconnected the supply from demand, and they have subsidized, they have created these subsidies that even when we do what Aaron was suggesting, which I do as well, don't buy from companies that are hurting the earth. I mean, I'm a minimal consumer. Like I buy as little as possible, right? Because we want to reuse what we have. We have way too much stuff on the earth. But one of the things that's happening is that even as governments, even as people make changes, governments are continuing to incentivize the polluters, the people who are destroying the earth, the industries that are destroying the earth. For instance, dairy consumption has been going down for a long time, over a decade, but dairy production in my country is still going up. And one of the reasons is that the government has agreed to buy all the excess dairy, and then the government is storing it in these huge refrigerated caverns and giving it to people in these poverty programs, many of whom are people of color for whom they have high degree of lactose intolerance. And so it's being given away, it's rotting in storage, all at great expense to the American taxpayers, even though people are using less dairy. So we must change policies. It's not just about individual change. We must change policies so that these companies that are no longer popular and that are selling products that we understand are detrimental to human health, detrimental to the planet, detrimental to our spiritual integrity as people who care about other living beings, that these products are no longer being supported. And then I want to respond to Aaron, and I'm taking chlorella myself right now, and I'm not going to say that chlorella and spirulina aren't healthy. They're extremely healthy products, very, very nutrient dense. But what I want to say is that this idea of a complete protein, that was a mistake that was put forth by Francis Moore Lappé when I was a teenager and I was reading her book, Diet for a Small Planet, she put forth this idea, and I was vegetarian at the time. So I was studying my amino acids. Like I have to eat sesame seeds with beans or rice and beans, to get this complete protein. And it was based on this idea that the egg was the complete protein. Well, guess what? Our bodies are so intelligent, just like these intelligence systems that James and that Aaron have been talking about. Our bodies are so intelligent that they are going to take the protein from whatever it is that we're eating, and they're going to put it together into the form that we need most. And we don't even have to eat it at the same meal. The protein from the foods, the amino acids from the foods I ate last night, it's going to combine with my breakfast I eat later. And guess what? There's protein in all plant foods. You cannot eat enough calories and not get enough protein. This whole protein thing is a myth that's part of this ideology, this invisible ideology of carnism that says that eating meat is natural, normal, and necessary. Well, guess what? It's not natural. It's not necessarily what's best for the human body. It's totally not necessary. 20 plus years, whole food, plant-based. I don't take any special supplements to have the right protein. I just eat fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains and legumes. I'm fine, right? And it's not necessary, not natural, and it's not necessarily normal. What we see is normal in one country. In my country, we don't eat dogs, but in some countries, it's perfectly normal to eat dogs, right? Normal is cultural. Right, so we can change the norms. We can change the norms to life-serving norms that lift up the human health, that lift up the earth, that lift up our right relationships with the other beings with whom we share the earth, and that bring us back into alignment with our true values. I don't know anybody that would hurt another living being for their pleasure, but this is what people are doing mindlessly through their diets. And so I do want to answer your question, though, which was, what can we do? Right? Mm-hmm. What can we do to promote biodiversity? A huge part of it is rewilding. It's letting nature heal itself. In the same way that our bodies bring ourselves into alignment when we're feeding them the right foods, nature will bring itself into alignment. So a huge thing that we need to do is rewilding. These areas that we're currently burning down, that we're cutting down to raise animals for food, to raise soybeans and grains to feed these animals. I just went on a train trip across our country and I want to cry. I was looking forward to this train trip. I wanted to see our beautiful country. Guess what I saw? Mile after mile after mile after mile of these dead fields, and fields that were growing annual grasses that were imported that have wiped out the natural biodiversity, and cattle grazing. I mean, this is what our country has become, and this is what the world has become. 37% of the ice-free land on Earth is used to raise animals for food. And we need to take those areas and we need to reduce that size of it. We're not going to all go vegan overnight. We need to start drastically making policy changes and dietary changes that will allow those lands to go back to nature so she can do what she does best, which is create biodiversity, create species, create health, and thriving communities of individualized expressions of the same thing, the one life that we are all living.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Jamsit. So I think this is very, very interesting point for us, that how we can help each other, how we can protect this biodiversity, and how we can create more awareness.
Yes, it's just been great to be invited on this show in particular, Sharif. I commend you for assembling the panelists as you do every show. And there's a few things that I want to talk about, and that's, like, why are we subsidizing the dairy industry? Well, why are we subsidizing the fossil fuel industry? Well, our governmental system is such that, you have a senator or a representative that is from a dairy state or is from a fossil fuel state. And so they argue for their points, and somebody else wants their vote for some other bill. And so they vote to support this. Well, we have to start electing people that are thinking bigger term than in terms of what's good for my state, what's good for my congressional district. We have to start thinking about us in this together. Now, this is a very big change that I'm asking for. And it's like, Professor Donald once told me, it was like, how do you make rhinoceros soup? Well, you make the soup and then you go capture a rhinoceros and then put it in the soup. Except capturing the rhinoceros is pretty darn hard. So, changing people's minds is pretty darn hard. Getting to think about other people instead of themselves turns out to be pretty darn hard. But, we don't have time to waste. We have to start changing people's minds. Now, one of the country that I grew up in and live in, the United States, we were born with a couple of myths right from the start. So I'm not saying the things now that I used to say. I got this change in perspective by learning, by life experiences. But what I was taught was rugged individualism. And rugged individualism meant that, if you don't like where you are, go west, plant your, crops there. Well, there's nowhere else to go in the United States. The final frontier is somewhere else. It's not in the United States. We can't just pick up and go, build a log cabin, plant our own crops, and survive. So this idea of that we're all rugged individuals, I grew up thinking that. I grew up thinking that all of my accomplishments were mine due to my will, my talents, the assets that I had in my character. But you know what? I never cut my own hair when I had my hair, and I never fixed the fillings in my teeth. People were always helping me. I just was blind to it. What we have to realize is that people need each other. They have to survive. People can't live by themselves. We're not in this alone. We need to be part of a community. It's a fundamental human need. And, we can't survive it alone. So this America First attitude means America alone, and we can't survive alone. So we must change our attitudes. We must change our perspective. We must think about others rather than ourselves. So much of our problems have been caused by self-interest. So how do we change so that we are thinking of others, that we are selfless in our approach, not so much self-centered? The other myth that we grew up with is anti-intellectualism. And, anti-intellectualism is a fundamental thing. And, so if like we had President Obama and people thought, well, he's talking down to me, but that's the way he was. He was a trained, he was a trained intellectual, and he spoke like one. So people didn't like that about him. And why? Because we are trained to think that intellectualism means that you're an elitist, that you're above me, that you're looking down at me. And this is not what we want to do. We want to have faith in scientists, faith in what the scientists are telling us, faith in what our intelligence tells us is right ahead of us, which is disaster. So this is, I don't know if you've noticed, but I try not to appeal to the intellect so much as I do to the emotion. I try to look into the camera and say it with conviction. We're killing our planet. Stop it. So this is what I'm trying to do, get the message out so that people hear it and feel it. Because until you feel it, you're not going to change your behavior. And what we have to do is change our behavior, whether it comes to simple things like changing our diet, simple things like driving an electric car, if you can buy a car, if you can drive an electric car. But why isn't the government funding electric cars, subsidizing electric cars instead of fossil fuel cars? I'm so overjoyed to hear Biden considering that. This is something like, why aren't there electric charging stations all over the place so that this fear of not being able to, of running out of fuel before you can get to your destination goes away? Why don't we do things like this as a governmental policy decision, that there will be electric charging stations so that you can drive from one part of the country to another, from coast to coast, without worrying? And why aren't there so many of them that you don't get long lines? And why isn't it so efficient that you don't have to wait for hours? Because now you're disincented to do it because it's inconvenient. So with one small policy change, you could actually change the planet. Incrementally at first, but start with the small changes first, then the small change added to another small change, added to another small change, it's a larger change. And that's how you change society. one incremental step at a time. And do not give in to despair. Do not give in to despair that it's too big a problem to solve. We can solve this, but it takes will. And it takes an ability to work together. And that's what we have to focus on. You don't get further in life by stepping on the shoulders of someone else. You can't do it that way anymore. It might have worked for your grandfather. It won't work for our grandchildren. You know, lift those up around you. And all of us will survive. Stepping on each other will produce disaster. And we're on the precipice of disaster. Thanks again, Sharif.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
You know, I'm going to make an appeal real fast to the industrialists and the venture capitalists and to the hard bottom liners out there. It's that your practice simply isn't sustainable. It's not economical. That which is sustainable is inherently economical. What if I told you your profits could be exponentially more if you were to utilize, microgreenery agricultural methods? You know, what if you were to build a building, you know, to house crops that regrow themselves or self-harvesting? Your yields would be exponentially higher than just having a big old dumb field full of grass and cows. You know, I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to do this. I'm not sure why you would continue to have a field full of grass and cows when you could have a small building making things nutrient dense at 10 times the capacity, yielding 20 times the profit. Why would you want to do this any differently? It doesn't make sense. Why would you not want your factory powered by solar, powered by wind? Do you enjoy spending money on an electric bill? Do you enjoy paying for your power consumption, or would you rather pay one time up front and then you're powered for life? You know, I'm not in an appeal to the hardliners, to the industrialists. Why would you continue your practice? It's not sustainable. It's not economical. You're not even good at capitalism. If you were, you would understand that inherently that which is sustainable is economical. As an entrepreneur myself, I encourage you to look into sustainable business models. I think you're going to be very pleased with your bottom line. If that's all you care about, at least do it right. And, I know that was a bit of more of an emotional interjection than anything, but that's just kind of my comment.
Hello, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah.
Yes, Madam Betlaf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you have, go ahead. Did you have a specific question or?
Yes, yes. Mr. Aaron, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Well, that was all I really had to say anyways. Like I said, I know it was more of an emotional outburst than anything, but that was really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Madam Betlaf, like as we are right now fighting with this COVID-19 situation, lot of challenges we have economical challenges, and climate change is real. And what we understand from this intellectual discussion, that actually we have to do a lot of work. And what do you think in the relationship in between developed nations and developing nations to solving these climate change related things? How we can solve this problem together? It's only be the corporate or political discussions, or beside that the much people will get benefit through this developing nations collaborations and partnership? What do you think?
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking that question. I think it's really important. And I appreciate that you even said the word COVID in there, because what we know is that all of these crises are interrelated. So COVID didn't spring out of nowhere. COVID wasn't caused by a microorganism. COVID was caused by the way humans use the natural world. The same thing that's causing human species extinction, the same thing's causing climate crisis, caused COVID. It's the way humans are sourcing animals for food. And we're not even looking at that. Our governments, our policymakers worldwide, whether developed or undeveloped, we're not really looking at the cause. We're looking for the silver bullet in the form of a vaccine, which can be specifically helpful for this virus, but will not help with the next virus. and the next one may be far worse. So we need to start looking at cause. And the onus is on the developed world. The onus is on us. Those of us who have way more than we need to make much larger changes. We need to share our privilege. There's already ways that we're helping in some regard because we're having less babies for the most part. But and a baby born, I'm not one of these people that says overpopulation is the problem, because believe me, it's not that we have too many people. It's the amount of people that we have are living on and using the earth, and it's primarily us. We are the problem, and the developed world is increasingly copying. The developing world is increasingly copying the developed world. So I say, first of all, don't copy our bad habits. Don't copy our bad habits. Don't start eating tons of meat. I mean, in most developing countries, there are these indigenous diets that were largely plant-based because they didn't have a lot of money for meat, right? Meat was much more scarce. So in most of the natural indigenous diets of the world, they're largely plant-based. They're not entirely plant-based. They eat some animal products, but they're much healthier for you. They're much healthier for the earth. So don't start copying us. Don't start going to McDonald's just because it's cropping up in your country, and Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken and all the rest, right? So don't copy us. I think that's the main thing for the developing world. The developing world needs to make some infrastructure changes. You need to make some infrastructure changes to be able to have the people in your countries be able to have the basic necessities of a life. And I believe to thrive. Again, if you read Donut Economics, I believe it's possible for all of us to thrive, not just to survive, not just to have the basic necessities of life, but to thrive within the boundaries of the Earth system. And so that part about within the boundaries of the Earth system, that is primarily on us. On the developing world, don't copy our bad habits. Don't take our garbage. Refuse to take our garbage. We will have to figure out something to do with our garbage. Don't make garbage for us. Stop making garbage for us. Find ways to live within the ecosystem. But for us, we need to cut way back. We need to become more concerned. For those of us in the developed world, we need to become more concerned as world citizens and as stewards of this great web of life that we've all been talking about, this one organism that we all share, that we need to become stewards of it. And that needs to be our priority. I love our Swedish teenage activist, Greta, and I'm gonna really butcher her last name, Thunberg. I just love her. She tells it like it is, and she is talking to those of us in the developed world. And she insists that equity be part of the solution to the climate crisis. And I agree, we need to take equity measures, but that does not mean that the developing world copies us. It means that we support, that we make the changes in the developed world that we need to do. Stop buying all this stuff. Stop using as much plastic. Do you know that plastic, the ramping up, the increase of plastics is because the fossil fuel companies are fighting to continue selling their product, and they're selling tons of it in the developing world, products that are not allowed in the developed world. They're selling to the developing world. Don't buy it. Find other ways. Go back to your more natural ways and rewild your beautiful countries. Many of these countries, rewild them. And the developing world needs to give a ton of money. We have a ton of money. We need to give it to the cause of sustainable development, truly sustainable development, which is not about making profits. It's about bringing all humans into that safe and just space where we can continue to live here indefinitely on this beautiful earth.
It appears that Sharif is frozen, so I think it was my turn. So I'm going to go ahead and just double down on what you said, what Reverend Beth said. And I think that the one thing, I don't want to lose your overall message, but population growth has caused new problems, and we can't ignore the new problems that population growth has caused. And I do think that your overall message is spot on, is that, how are we managing the population that we have? Because we can shrink it and still mismanage it, or we can grow it and manage it better. So these are the things that we want to think about and talk about, and nothing should be off the table. As far as I'm concerned, we have to look at all the possibilities. And one of the things is regulations, because I often hear in this country anyways, deregulation. It's almost taken as a gospel, you know, but of course, the lack of regulation would be worse. And so what we are is not overly regulated. We're crazily regulated. We're insanely regulated. Regulations that no longer should be on the books are still on the books. No one has the will to change them, to erase them. No one has the will to modify them so they're appropriate. You know, we talk in terms of appropriate technology. You know, don't build a windmill where there's no wind. You know, use appropriate technology where it fits best. You know, Darwin didn't tell us that the survival of the fittest is the strongest. It's the one that fits best into its environment. So if we want to survive, we have to fit into our environment well. And we have the mental capacity to do that, which many species don't. They're just, you know, they just go extinct. And, you know, and it doesn't mean that we can't go extinct. Absolutely, we can. And but the thing is we can foresee it and take preventative actions. And that's what we're trying to encourage on this panel discussion, and is to take appropriate actions. And it may change from environment to environment, from locality to locality. What's appropriate in my backyard might not be appropriate in yours, and vice versa. So we have to think intelligently about this, and don't be put off by this anti-intellectualism that I grew up with. You know, you just want to find out what works best, what fits best for where you are, and you will survive. This is what adaptation is all about. And so our regulations have to be looked at in the same way. We have to pass new regulations that are appropriate for the times. Disregard, get rid of the regulations that are no longer serving. You know, so this is the thing that, and people don't like change. New regulations, they were resisted just because it says the word new. Get over that. Get over yourselves. You know, we have to think differently. This rate of change is accelerating. So this is the facts. You know, don't be living in a world of delusion. You know, Don Quixote tilted at windmills because he saw something that wasn't there. You know, so, but the way to make change is to see something that isn't there and make it so. Manifest it into reality. See something not the way it is, but the way that it might be. This is the way we make change. This is the way we introduce appropriate technologies. And can we do it? Yes. Are we doing it? No. So what do we have to change? We have to change ourselves first, our communities next, and who knows where we'll go from there. But we have to start thinking about one world, one planet, because we're all citizens of that planet. We're citizens of the world, not of our communities, not of our towns, villages, cities and states and countries. You know, the borders in nature are mountain ranges and oceans and wide rivers, you know. But you look on an atlas, you look on a globe, you look on a map, you see artificial boundaries. These are man-made, these are artificial. These don't exist in nature. So stop thinking in terms of borders that exist only in the human mind and not in the real world. Start thinking about the world as it is. And if we make regulations based on reality rather than delusion, we'll find we're all better off. Thanks again, Sharif.
Thank you. Thank you. I directly want to go for the concluding remarks. Mr. Aaron, you finish your discussions with Madam Betlav.
Well, I just wanted to add a quick point real fast. And that is to, as she said, don't follow our mistakes. Don't base, you know, what you're doing in developing countries off of what we have done, because frankly, we have led the world to its state here in the West. We are the ones that industrialized and exploited, you know, and have ravaged the world to the point that it is. So, you know, people often look to the West for answers, and unfortunately, We don't have answers. We just have a bunch of systems and factories and things of that sort. We have industry, not answers. I say to look to Asia Pacific in developed countries to learn how you can develop your infrastructure, because in the East and in Asia Pacific, you have considerable initiatives for green cities, for smart cities. You have initiatives for sustainability. If anybody should be basing anything off of anything, it should be us that is basing our views off of practices in the East more so than anything. So if anything, again, I don't think it is the developed or the developing that should look to the developed, but the developed that should learn from the developing nations to figure out how we can move forward. Because you guys are the ones asking all the difficult questions that our lobbyists and our subsidies are preventing us from asking. So just a quick point to accentuate on what she had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really great sessions. I think our audience can learn a lot. Even why biodiversity is important. When Bitlab actually come up with these things that we should avoid the bad habits of the developed nations. This is really important. Actually, every nation has some good point and some bad point. We should avoid. Even developing nations has good point and bad point, good habits and bad habits. We should avoid the bad habits. This is the ultimately objective of World Talent Economy Forums. We want to create a good awareness. We want to create the real connectivity. We know the connectivity is productivity. And as a team, we want to work together. We want to help our communities. Even we are open to help anywhere in the world. Any problem we find, we want to help each other. And this is the way we can develop our better communities. Because even the COVID-19 situation, even my personal family member died. Many people actually died in South Asia, even in Asia Pacific. So we think that like this is now it's a global crisis. This is not an American problem, not European problem, not Chinese problem. It's a global problem. So definitely climate change is like that it will be the global problem. So we have to work together. We do not have any alternative. Who is Asian, who is American, who is Middle East, who is Africa? No choice. We have to collaborate together, and we have to work together. And talent is everywhere. We just have to focus the talent people. The talent can solve many problems quickly. So that is our objective. That's why we are trying to develop our organization like School of Talent Economy, World Talent Economy Forum, Asia Research and Development Institutions, and Al Noor Academy. All of our content, especially School of Talent Economy and World Talent Economy Forum, it's 100% free, because maybe a people from Indonesia or in Malaysia, they may do not know about Mr. James E., Madam Betlavs or Aaron, but with your knowledge, with your sessions, maybe we can change millions of people perception, lives, and we have to educate them. So we are working on that. So any of your idea, any things you want to share with us, we are almost 24/7. Whenever you can call our teams, we are ready to support anyone. So your good idea, good points, all of help us to grow. We are young, so your dynamic strategy maybe solve many problems. So thank you everyone for joining today's session. I want to give thanks from core of my hearts, Madam Bethlabs, James Seed, and Mr. Aaron for your continuous support to World Talent Economy Forum. And I request all of our audience, share our content with your governments, with your corporations, with your academy. I'm sure it will be very helpful for your policy making, for your research, for your innovative solutions, and you can make a bridging in between developed nations and developing nations. Because example, I'm sure our mentors, our speakers, they always love to help different people. So I'm sure you can directly communicate with them. And beside that, you can communicate with us, and any kind of problem you need, we directly can communicate with our speakers, and we can figure out any problem solutions. So thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. I want to go for concluding remarks, and we have our conference this month from 28 June to 2 July, because of the last conference response, we get a huge like speakers and audience for our conference. We make it 5 different sessions. So Madam Bethlab, James Seed, and Mr. Aaron, you can join our conference. And beside that, you have your friends and your family members, your business partner, they can join. We make it very simple, everything 100% free. Just as we are moving with our fundraising option, whatever you want. You can donate World Talent Economy Forum through our PayPal account, presidentwtforum@gmail.com. Even if you do not want, you should not donate to us, but our project will be continued. That is our objective. So thank you for joining today's even this conference, 100% free. If anybody love to do, they can donate. If they do not want, no problem. We will continue our project. So thank you for excellent sessions. And I think it will be really, really helpful for everyone. So Madam Betla, what's your concluding remarks? Then Mr. Jamesit, and finally Mr. Aaron.
First of all, I just really want to say again, thank you, Sharif, and World Talent Economy Forum. You're doing such really important work, really good work, and I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with your communities around the world. So thank you. Yeah, so I think what I want to say is, for concluding remarks, is that I want to say something hopeful. You know, what I see is that there is so much possibility. I totally echo what James said. We need to see it, we need to believe it, and there's so many possibilities for change, and we must act quickly. But I see that there are some governments that are taking some steps. There are some companies that are doing the right thing, and we need to see more of it. We need to lift up these examples. I don't know what these examples are, but when I said don't copy us in the developing world, copy some things that we're doing, because I know that we're doing some things right. In my state of California, there's some legislators who have introduced legislation. One of them is to give grants to farmers to transition from animal agriculture to plant-based agriculture. And another one is to give grants to schools to add more plant-based foods to their menus. I know the Canadian government has taken steps to encourage people to eat more plants and less animal products, as have the Chinese government. The German government has passed some regulations that increase plant-based food in public institutions. So look to these examples of where people have learned from our mistakes and are now righting our wrongs, and start structuring your societies around these better ideas, these ideas of how we can lift each other up. And you know, I really do believe it's possible for everyone in the world to thrive, but we really need to fundamentally alter the way we think about our relationship with the earth and with each other and with the other living beings of the earth, and fundamentally alter how we interact with the earth system and with all of the other living beings with whom we share the planet. But that when we do these things, that we can have a better outcome, and we must do it quickly. So thank you again for having me on the show, Sharif.
Thank you, Madam Betlaf. Mr. Jamesit, what's your concluding remarks today?
Thanks again, Sharif. Wonderful opportunity to share my views with people that are like-minded, let's put it that way. I think that, you know, it's often said that those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. And so, yeah, you want to inform yourself of the history, but you want to have a discerning eye because you want to not repeat our mistakes, as well as use the things that we did well. Have we made a mess of the planet? Yes. So is making it more messier the idea, or to do something different? And the rate of change is accelerating. So the world that we're leaving you is different than the one that I, in my generation, inherited. So this is, you have to look at what's real for you. What's really going on now is extinction level events. It's a catastrophic crisis of the environment. So can you do what we did? You would be delusional to do so. So you must have new ideas. You must see the reality that is right in front of your faces and not pretend that the past is the present. And to make the future happen, you must come up with new, novel ideas, because you will be faced with new, novel problems. Coronavirus, for example, is a novel virus, never seen before. We had to create new vaccines for it. This is the future. New problems, new solutions. So you must be prepared. Prepare yourself to face the future. Acquire the skills that are necessary. Don't become a COBOL programmer. COBOL is from the 1990s. You have to become a programmer for what you want, what the industries that employ programmers want. So don't live in the past, live in the future. One of the proudest moments in the United States for me is when one of our presidents urged us to tear down the walls between us. One of the most shameful moments was when a president of the United States said, build a wall. So there are too many walls. And if you think these problems are too big to handle, you're just another brick in one of the walls. So tear down the walls. Live your life about tearing down the walls between us. Connect, and keep connecting to other people, because no one person is going to solve these problems. It's going to take collaboration, cooperation, all these C words that we're not comfortable with. Well, get comfortable with it. Change yourself. If you're not comfortable, get comfortable. It means change is hard, change is uncomfortable, tough. It's life. You have to change. You have to see what's real right in front of your faces and accept that, not what was 50 years ago. Don't live in the past. That's delusional. Face the reality of today and prepare yourself. Give yourself the assets to train yourself to be able to have the skills that are necessary to fit into the environment that you find yourselves in. And change it as no other species can. Change it so that more can thrive, not just survive, but thrive. Thanks again, Sharif, for a wonderful show. Really.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron, what's your concluding remarks today?
Well, thank you, Sharif, for giving me the opportunity to speak with such brilliant minds on this subject and such like minds on this subject. To people who are watching this, this is the sort of platform that we describe so much in the shows when we talk about, what efforts are being taken right now to bridge these gaps and all that. The World Talent Economy Forum is that. Please, guys, support it. Projects like this, I can't ask enough for their support. Moving along, though, in conclusion, we are a part of the tree of life. Separation of species and all that is merely an illusion. There is but one continuum to this force of life here on Earth. And we are an integral part of it. And being the sapient species, the self-aware species of our planet, it is our duty to safeguard and protect this continuum of life on Earth. We like to think of ourselves as being outside of it and it being something that we can use. But in all reality, it is a part of us and we are a continuation of it. Don't ever forget your place in this circle of life. It is very important that you take this long-term view, because long after your life is said and gone, the rest of the world is going to have to continue to live with the impacts of decisions that you made. These can either be good impacts or they can be bad impacts. You can either be remembered as, a good person who helped contribute to making a better world and making the world more sustainable, or you can be remembered as a footnote of history, if anything at all. And ultimately, to all the young entrepreneurs out there, all the young aspiring politicians and people out there, that is the wager that is presented here. Is that history will remember those who have done right, and history will forget those who have done wrong. So remember your place in this tree of life. Don't buy from companies that exploit. Try to eat a more plant-based diet. If you see trash while you're out at the beach or out in the woods, pick it up. Do everything within your power and influence people around you. Talk to people about it. Bring it up as part of your normal conversation. Hey guys, have you noticed that the local climate has shifted? This is something that I kind of end up bringing up here in Texas with my friends. Like, wow, guys, it's a lot greener than it usually is this time of year. Just raising awareness, anything that you can do personally. You are powerful. You are so incredibly powerful. The power of one influences the power of many, which gives back to the one. If you're not operating under these premises and under this long-term view of the world, you're not going to survive in this new world that's being created. You will be outed, and your business practice will be torn apart because it's not sustainable, it's not economical, and not even by the people who don't agree with your business practice, but by the fundamental pressures of the market itself shifting towards sustainability. people who are focused on corruption will be undone. So that being said, do your part to do well, do your part to do right, and to live in harmony with this superorganism that is known as nature, because you are a part of it. It is your duty as a denizen of this earth. It is all of our duty to work together to make this more sustainable, to ensure the continuation of life on earth and biodiversity in times to come. Thank you again, Sharif. Your show is absolutely incredible. And thank you so much to everybody else who spoke. Absolutely enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really, really great session for us. And thank you all of you, our speakers, those who continuously support World Talent Economy Forum. We want to invite more of the speakers because the more you share with you, like your knowledge, your views, I think our community can understand what's going on and how we can solve our problem together. And we need collaboration. We are open for that. So thank you. It's really, really great session. Thank you, Madam Beth Labs. Thank you, Mr. James Seed, and thank you, Mr. Aaron, for your continuous support. And thank you all of our audience, those who always give us positive feedback, positive supports. It's really grateful. Even sometimes, example, even yesterday, my friends from Sri Lanka, he said, hey, our Prime Minister also shows and our politicians also shows, like observe World Talent Economy Forums. From India, when we get calls, they said, hey, we are developing future of the university. We want to develop this university in India. We become very, very positive and we get all of our energy. So your positive support always helpful for us. We know there are many, many good people around the world. We want to connect with all of the good people, those who can help our talented people, and these talented people will solve global problem. Thank you, Mr. Aaron, Mr. Beth Labs, and Mr. James Eid. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you, Sharif. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I don't know how.